Inspired by the golden age of Hollywood and the dark, mysterious underbelly of the 1950s, Blue Rose is a solid homage to an influential era that sadly tends to rely just a little too much on borrowing from other films to really be its own thing. However, George Barron is a very talented young writer and director, and it's quite an achievement to not only complete a feature film at such a young age, but to create something with such an artistic flair. When Detective Dalton and Detective Lily, two whippersnappers fresh out of the office and eager to make a name for themselves, are commissioned with what looks like a clear-cut homicide case, their lives are turned upside down and their realities transform into surreal, incomprehensible nightmares. As the investigation progresses, both Dalton and Lily slide deeper and deeper into the strangely ominous underworld of Hollyweird, while meeting some curiously bizarre characters along the way. Blue Rose is a David Lynch love fest, and there's really no getting around the fact that Barron has essentially borrowed most of what makes up the film from the likes of Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, and even Lost Highway. I love a good nod or throwback, but when is it too much? In a recent interview, Barron admitted that Lynch was kind of the only male role model he ever had. He doesn't shy away from his other influences too, which include Ann Biller's The Love Witch, Sunset Boulevard, Mildred Pierce, and the 2020 Netflix drama Ratched, created by Ryan Murphy and based on the early years of Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I even saw a touch of the Tim Burton's aesthetic from the Edward Scissorhands suburb applied to the film. Visually, The Blue Rose does share a lot in common with the aforementioned projects, but the story itself is a classic noir. Barron even labelled the film a pastel noir, which he describes as the structure or general idea of a noir film, but you don't make it look like a noir film. He was heavily influenced by pastel shades of pink, blue and green, particularly early on in the film, and then later some of the colours become more vibrant and almost neon. Initially I thought some of the performances were a bit too over the top, which I do realise was a thing in the golden age of Hollywood, but as the film progresses and some of the more disturbing imagery and horror elements begin to rear their head, I felt like the actors really pulled through. Olivia Scott Welch is fascinating as Detective Lily, and Glüme Harlow as a mashup of Betty Boo and Marilyn Monroe lights up every scene she appears in. Danielle Bisutti is a worthy pantomime villain, and Nikko Austen Smith, who were introduced in a distressing sequence right at the beginning, gives a heartbreaking performance towards the finale of the film. There's some really impressive imagery in the film, and even though it looks like the budget is fairly smallish, it also feels like every single last penny was used to its fullest potential, which is just crazy admirable. Barron has been a self-proclaimed horror fan since he was a kid, and apparently there is even an obscure reference to Sleepaway Camp here. Though I didn't pick up on it on the first watch, I have a sneaky suspicion that it's to do with Bisutti's Norma Steele character. There are several very creepy and unsettling sequences in the third act of the film that will land really well with any fans of Lynchian cinema. The Blue Rose is a beautiful film, a noirish, genre-bending tribute to classic Hollywood, but the similarities to Lynch's best films are just a little bit too on the nose for me.